Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Realizing Rural. Today we are joined by an incredible guest who I've really been looking forward to having him on for a long time. Former Chief Tony Dix of the City of Barnwell Fire Department. Chief Dix has been a dedicated leader in our community for several years and is really well thought of not only in our community but also for his expertise and valuable insights that he brings in managing a fire department in a rural setting. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the history of the Barnwell City Department. We're going to talk about the critical role that volunteers play in a rural area. And then we're going to also talk about some of the history of the department and the new fire department, which everyone in the community is really, really excited about. So without any further ado, let's all welcome Chief Dix. And Chief Dix, thank you for joining us on the Realizing Rural podcast. Happy to have you here today.
Glad to be here, Daniel. I'm glad you have the opportunity to let us speak about our new toy down the street.
Everyone's really, really excited about it. Can't wait to hear about that. I think I would just kind of get started. What would really be interesting to me is kind of talk about yourself a little bit personally. I know you've been in the fire service for a long time. How did you get started, and kind of what led you to your to and through your career?
There you go. Well, I like a lot of people. Family was involved in the fire service before I came along. And that's how a lot of folks do it. It's kind of, generational through different families, fathers, the sons follow them, vice versa, daughters or whatever. But my dad was a firefighter here, a volunteer fireman. He picked it up around the time they moved in this area from the Savannah Riverside. They had to move out of the site. And Chief Vickers Sr. at the time brought the old 1933 fire truck by their shop because they were mechanics. And he said, I really need you to put some flashing red lights on it and make sure it's going to crack and go when we need it. So when they come back to pick the truck up, that's when Chief Vickery says, you need to come on and join this volunteer fire department with us. We need the help. And that was in 54. So, 4 years later, I'm born. And then I think about 4 years old, right across the street from where we are now, sitting in front of the I think that was Modern Drugs at the time, drugstore. I got to see how the fire truck worked for the first time, and we got to see some people put down the fire because right down the street was the Goodyear store. It had caught fire. Anyway, Mom had picked me up off the couch and says, come on, we're going uptown where your daddy's at. And so we rode uptown. I remember sitting on that flower box across the street and seeing Big Bertha on the hydrant in front of where City Hall was down, hose laying down the street. And there was a few firemen right at the front right there. And then I see them go in the window of the place with the fire hose and come back out. And so that was my first experience in seeing the fire service. Really didn't understand what was going on. I got to join the fire department since my dad became chief a little while later at age 15. And so we volunteered from then until I started getting involved in career service and worked my way around until a few things, came back to volunteered some more until an opening came up in the chief's position. And at the time, I had been caught in a reduction in force in a local industry. So anyway, I put in for it and was able to work it out. And like I said, we finished it up, with a good 50 years of fire service altogether between paid and volunteer service. And so wrapped it up this last August.
First of all, thank you for your service. Mm-hmm. And it's when you look back, you bring a wealth of history from the fire department. I know this is something that you're obviously the City of Barnwell Fire Department specifically, something that you're very passionate about and interested in. I think it would be interesting to give our viewers an overview of the City of Barnwell Fire Department. How was it first started, and how did it progress to where we are now?
Okay. Where we got a lot of our information from, we had a lot of word of mouth conversation with Chief Lloyd Bickering Jr. He sat down with us one day and we really wrote down everything that he could tell us. And he, like I, grew up in the fire service because his father was a fire chief. And so he and my dad were about the same age, but he'd been involved on the fire department a bit longer. But we did that, went to the Sanborn Fire Insurance Maps, which were the predecessor to the ISO, how people back then would determine what risks were in a community. And they would come in and actually draw a complete scale map of your town. And even this building here is even shown on several of them. And it tells you the type of construction it's made out of, stuff like that. So, and it lists in the bottom of the corner what the fire defenses were. And so we learned from those years what we had. And so the first, and as far back as we can go, we know that the fire department had what they call a hand tub, which is basically a wooden box with a hand pump on it that you can, squirt water out of, and you would roll it into where you're doing, and you take buckets of water like the old bucket brigade and keep filling the hand tub. We had one of those, and we had a chemical tank, which was a soda acid type thing on wheels. And those were parked over there where the agriculture building is today. There was a town hall over there at one time, according to this map. And it says the fire equipment. It shows a little shed that it was right beside there. But there was no really truly organized town fire department. It was just, some folks that if there's a fire, we're the ones that's going to come out and help. That we run the businesses on Main Street and stuff. And it was really designed to protect the core of town. And that came along for a while. And then later on, the maps tell us that the city had a windmill and a artesian well on the center of the circle there and an elevated tank. And we had some wooden water mains that go down the street, and that would get the water a little closer to your property. And that same little hand truck or hand car or whatever could go there and stuff. But we really didn't have any true firefighting, stuff. Then sometime in there, it was about 1918, 1919, and I don't know what took place. I mean, we were right at World War One. And this RD Coal Manufacturing Company was brought out of it's in Georgia, but anyway, they came over, and their job basically was to build water tanks for towns and water systems and stuff. And they came in here and laid out a complete steel water pipe system for the town, did an elevated storage tank, and put a steam-operated fire pump in place, as well as a steam-operated water pump that would push water into that elevated tank. And at that point, the town said, well, we've got hydrants, we got the ability to put water pressure on, we can have a fire department. And so they invested in 2 hose reels that carried about 1,500 feet of 2.5-inch hose apiece and all the nozzles and stuff. And they had a ladder wagon. Everything was hand pulled. And the only paved streets were right here on Burr Street and down Main Street. Everything else was gravel, and around the circle was paved. But that's how they fought fire back then. And the town says, we'll organize the fire department. And Chief Vickery, the Chief Vickery Sr., it was his brother who was the first fire chief. And they ran a small business right on the corner down here at Burr and Washington Street. And the shed that they kept the equipment in was right adjacent to their business, leaning up against the wall of the malaria building. And so if you had a fire, at that time, we had some telephone systems in place that you could ring in and let the operator know, and she'd notify down to the water shop. It was the end of the street, and the water shop had a steam operation going on. And the first fire chief, he'd made a steam whistle to deal with the steam. So anyway, they would blow the whistle, and everybody would get attention to the fire somewhere. The word would get out. They would take these hand trucks and hand carts and hook up to the fire hydrant, put the hose in place, and then they would ring down to the water shop by telephone or by a runner and turn up the water pressure. So they turned the town's water pressure up to about 85 pounds. And right now it's 56. Okay. But anyway, right after that, there was a lot of folks that had water leaks in their house and everything else. And Mr. Wayne Jordan's daddy said that was some of the best visits he ever had. But anyway, that's how we operated for years. And so that's the beginning of the fire department around 1919, when it was formally organized and had a station and had a roster of people and a leader. And from there, it just evolved over time. And as things changed with the city, we got away from the steam operation that the city ran. We had our own water plant as well as our electrical plant. I didn't know that until I started doing some reading. But anyway, the South Carolina Power Company at the time came in and says, we'd like to take your franchise and we'd like to operate it. So the town, I think, was glad to get rid of it because they'd been, shoveling coal for about 10 years down there off the train to keep this boiler running 24 hours a day. But long story short, we got rid of the steam pump. We got rid of the ability to raise water pressure on the fire hydrants. Now we had to have a fire truck with a pump on it to be able to pump water. And that took place around 1934. They bought the first motorized fire truck. But we didn't have a station to put it in because the lean-tos weren't big enough to do anything. So the Vickery brothers, who ran the garage down the street, they parked the fire truck inside their building. And in daytime, they'd pull it out and put it under those 2 oak trees in front of our old fire station and keep it there. And then if it got bad weather, they'd cover it with a tarp. Sometimes they stayed out there all summer because they were busy using the shop. But it stayed protected from the freezing when it got wintertime. But that's where the fire station was, out of their shop. And that went on until the Savannah River plant, boom, hit ball. And then the money began to flow. Fire department grew. They bought a brand new fire truck, which was Big Bertha. They bought in the town a couple of police cars, a panel wagon truck for utility work. Built this building that we've just torn down that was built back in 1954 for police, fire, and as well as City Hall. And we operated out of that building for nearly 70 years. And of course, we're the last ones in there. Everybody else seemed to like before we did. They all bugged out. But anyway, we we got the building, replaced and more stuff like that. But then it's just evolved from there. It's how things go. And then, of course, the water system grew and the way we do things grew and the town grew. So we had to grow a fire hall and match it with.
And to kind of take it from there to today, the current status of fire protection. Let's talk about the city, and then I'd like to talk about generally, rural areas in general as we kind of move forward. But the city itself today, how many paid positions are there? How many volunteers are there? What's the ratio? And then what kind of equipment? How's that equipment progressed over the years into where you are today?
In 54, when the Savannah River Plant came, they provided the truck Big Bertha. And we had this 33 model truck. And this is kind of a good story to tell you. The 33 model truck was here, and it was a little small open top cab type. Actually, it was a Chevrolet chassis, but American and France fire truck got in with that. Carried 100 gallons of water and a lot of fire hose and a pump. And anyway, we had that truck. And then the American LaFrance truck had been ordered. It took about a year to get our truck built and get it delivered. And then, anyway, just about the time all this was going on, they knew a new building was coming to put everything in. The 33 model truck got in an automobile accident at the end of Washington Street at Walk Road, ran in together with the law, rolled over. And the driver there was seriously hurt, but he was able to recover. But we lost the truck. And so we had no fire protection, and Barnwell was fixing to take off. I mean, we had construction workers everywhere, mobile homes, all this stuff, in here. And so the Savannah River Plant divided a water tanker truck. They parked it right out here in front of your building on the circle. And they took that panel wagon truck that they got, and they filled it up with fire hose and kind of replicated what we used to do with the old hand pull reels. We'd lay hose with the truck, hook it up to the hydrant, and fight with hydrant pressure. And so then they picked up the phone and called the folks at Elmira, New York, and says, "Can you hurry up on that truck? We don't have anything." And so they sped the truck up, kind of got it ahead of the line, and sent it on down by rail car down here to us. But before it got here, Mr. Coconut Davis, Mr. Eugene Davis, he was master of all trades. He could do most anything, steel-wise stuff. Some of his structures with the Ball Peanut Company are still standing around here today that he built. But anyway, he took that truck chassis and or the truck that was wrecked, salvaged what he could off of it, went down to the Man in Westbrook International Harvester tractor dealership and also sold trucks. And they bought a brand new 2-ton chassis truck, and he put a new fire truck together before Big Bertha arrived. So we were back to 2 trucks, both 1954. And then the truck that came from New York, it was a little bit more sophisticated than your typical truck. And then Chief Yaker at the time says, "We need somebody that's trained and can operate this truck. That, it's just not anybody can jump in it and make it work. And we've got this beautiful asset." And so the town council at the time decided, okay, we can do that. So they hired 2 employees, and they would work 24 hours on and 24 hours off. And they would operate that truck and manage it and take care of it and, supply the initial fire truck to the scene till the volunteers can show up. That went on until I became chief. And I think in about 2003, we were able to add 1 additional employee where you work 1 day on and 2 days off, because it was really difficult to get an employee to stay for that long and don't have any time off for the family and stuff. So we got that changed and matched up with the other departments in our area that were doing the same. And so then in 74, and we back up a little bit, we bought another truck because the insurance service office at the time says, "Truck's 20 years old, you got to replace it with a new one." So we ordered another American LaFrance truck, had it on the way, and contract signed. And then a few months after that, ISO came back and said, "Well, as long as your old truck passed the test, you don't have to buy a new one." And they'd said, "I'm so glad we got the truck ordered before then." He said, "I don't know if we'd have got another truck." But that truck stayed here for 30-something years. We used it, and we had 3 engines that we had to operate. And we had to run at least 2 to a fire call to meet the standard and get the best insurance credit. As Dad got out of it, and Chief Vickery Jr., he got involved. He got a little bit more involved in the rural aspect of firefighting and what the city could do for that and stuff. But we continued to grow, and we kept replacing trucks in about every 20 years as we could. And again, it was just the 2 employees at the time, and Chief Vickery became the first he wasn't a full-time paid fire chief. He was part-time because he was retired from his regular job, and he basically stayed there full-time every day, but he had a part-time salary. But he became the first kind of everyday person at the fire station to kind of make things go and do stuff. So we just kept growing. And as you can see at the old building down there, we had 2 doors in the front. Then we had 3. then we had 4 or 5, and then around the back we had number 6. And so we just added on to the building as we added on pieces of equipment. The town grew pretty good back in 99 or so, 2000, and we got to the point where the insurance service offices, you need a ladder truck to get your optimum insurance credit. And so it took a while. We looked for a truck and found a used truck, brought it in here and got credit for it. And it really, served out to get us a good ISO rating by getting that piece of equipment put in. And so it was expensive, but yet buying used made it a little bit cheaper. But we're a small community, and now we had to have 3 engines ready to go, a reserve, not a reserve, but a service truck or equipment truck in the ladder. So we're basically doing the same thing today. We're running 5 pieces of equipment out the front door if we need it. The 6th piece stays back in reserve, in case it's needed. In addition, those times of needing that type of amount of equipment just from one station is probably rare anymore because we got a lot of equipment around us that can get to us. But the insurance service office doesn't look at it that way. You have to own it. You have to have possession of it. So that's why the quantity of equipment. But that's where we're at today. And like I say, we're still down there with 3 employees, 1 on duty per day. That person takes care of all the equipment, checks it all out, makes sure it's good to go. Make sure that fire truck gets to the scene quickly while the other volunteers respond into the fire. Some respond to get additional equipment. We've compared that to towns like Williston and Blackfoot, where totally volunteer, and we've seen the benefit of it. Where having that employee that can get that truck there quickly. Sometimes you catch that fire once in the incipient stage, and we're able to get to it quick. Where in the other cases, it takes some time for somebody to get up from their home, go to a fire station, open the door, get in the truck cranked, get it out, get it there. That's valuable minutes that you lose, and sometimes the fire can get hit a little. So, not saying that it's not the right thing to do. Sometimes that's all some people can do. It's good to be able to have at least 1 employee that can move the equipment quickly, the first piece anyway, and get there and tell you what's going on.
And speaking of getting there and telling you what's going on, when you look back over the history, what are some of the significant? I think it would be interesting to hear some of the significant maybe incidents that have occurred that maybe some people know about and maybe some people don't know about. If you could talk about a few of those.
Before my time, I heard the stories that this 1933 truck we had when the Lee Banana Case Company had a fire out there almost to Ellington. They took the fire truck out there and they were able to help them out. In fact, there's a letter that we got at the fire station where Senator Brown wrote the Lee Banana Case Company asking if they would make a contribution to the town of Barnwell Fire Department for their response. And so that's how we know about that. Well, in my lifetime, I think let me back up. There used to be a opera house over here, just a couple of blocks behind the circle, and that burned back in Chief Vickers Sr.'s day. And that was probably the largest fire at the time. And then it was just about the time that I don't know if they had the pumper truck yet or not. So that was a right large fire. And so since then, in the 70s, we had the Barnwell Hotel. It was right there on Main Street. It caught fire. And Chief Vickers Sr. said that was the largest compared to the first fire that he knew about, the opera house. But I was, I think, 12 years old. I was in middle school. We're out there at a friend's house and we're helping his granddaddy feed up his cows. And we heard the siren and we looked towards town and there was this big black column of smoke coming up. So we jumped on our bicycles and rode from almost at the edge of the city limits down past my house on 64 into town. And I seen my mom come out of the driveway by the house. And I said, "Mom, where's the fire?" She said, "The hotel's on fire and I'm going to get your daddy." And we didn't have radios back then and pagers and stuff. It was all word of mouth or telephone call. And so we took off and Dad was at Mr. Frankie Peters' auto parts still getting parts. He was a mechanic. And so anyway, we took off down there as fast as we could. We wanted to catch a ride in Dad's pickup truck. And when we got to the railroad tracks, I looked up and the pickup truck was going up Marlboro Avenue, leaving us behind. So we thought about it at that time. Our neighbor across the street, Mr. Gene Burke, he was on the volunteer fire department. He said Mr. Burke's truck was home. So we pedaled back to my house. And whenever it beat on his door and got him out, we jumped in the back of his truck and rode up to the main street, and they were stretching hose and things were going wide open. But before the night was over with, we had 7 different pumpers in here from the towns around us, and the fire boiler was cleared under control till about 10 p.m. Mr. Bob Harris, you run the local newspaper, where Jonathan and Will y'all got property at now, stood in the doorway of the newspaper office and looked at my dad, and he pulled up and he says, Dad had just become fire chief. And he says, Horace, what do you need? He said, just get me some help. And so it was Allendale, Blackfoot, Williston, Denmark. Banhurt came over and as well. And then we talked to Savannah Riverside and we said, can you send us some help? And they said, we can send you one truck and one person. We said, no, we need people. So we got plenty of trucks. But anyway, the night went on, and then that was a 3-story, brick frame, but it was all wood with a full basement in the bottom of that thing. You could see it. I stood in front of the old fire station down there, and I could see the flames over the roof of the building across the street just flaring in the air. So it was a big night. My job was to watch the water pressure gauge along with Mr. Buster Jackson, who worked for the water department. And if it started to go down, I was to run up there and find my dad. Anyway, it stayed up. Mr. Albert Carroll kept every call on into town. So
it
was a long night.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And just for clarification, so that was basically where the post office is.
Yes, where the post office is today. In fact, the facade in front of the building across the street where the Country Club restaurant is, and also next door where the beautician shop is, that facade was carried on out 2 more spaces, and that was the front of the motel. Yeah, we got some good photographs of that took place over the years, but or during the fire. And so, but it was a huge facility, and they always had the fear that it would burn. And their decision was, Dad and Chief Hickory Jr., that was chief and assistant chief, that we were not going in the building. It wasn't worth somebody's life. It was an abandoned building, and we do our best. But the biggest fear that night, the wind would have been blowing towards the west. We probably would have lost Main Street, but it was blowing towards the east. And there was a big gap in there between that and Dr. Lemon's old office with the big wood lot. And in fact, the building we just talked about had the facade on the front. It had the Barnwell office supply in it, and I think it was the Sundial Fashion Shop. And when they opened up the door to the Sundial Fashion Shop, it was about 2 foot of water on the inside and migrated into there from fighting the fire, and mannequins and everything else flowed down into Main Street. And so that was the big talk for that. But anyway, that fire was big. I was just a kid. I remember seeing it all. Mom probably went and got me about 11 o'clock. Said, you got to go to school tomorrow. Oh, we're going home. And so I didn't want to do it, but I got to come back the next day and watch it. The next big fire around here was right down the street, crossing the fire station. It was where it's Maxwell Brothers Furniture Company in a big steel building. And anyway, it caught on fire in the middle of the night, and it was fully involved when we pulled up. That environment, and it wasn't long after that they were able to replace the building and build it right back, put a first story there again, which eventually became, the law firm that was here that did all the work for the asbestos industry, lawsuits and stuff, and they used it for file record storage, and it caught on fire. So I seen that building burn twice and responded to it twice, and so that was a major fire for us. Webb's hardware store over here, huge loss there. Sprinkled building, but he had not kept up with the sprinkler system like it's supposed to be. He turned it off because of the severe cold weather that was coming. And so anyway, it wasn't any support to help him put out the fire there. And couldn't control that one. It just went away from us and stuff. Trying to think of a few more, but those are your big ones. And so, and having that, and I'll tell you this short little bit. The insurance service office came down and they were going to do us another evaluation. And we had the ladder truck, we'd already been scored for it and everything else. And he says, now, Tony, he says, the law firm across the street's no longer here, right? I said, that's right. He said, that was one building that we had scheduled. It was ladder truck required. He said, Webb's Hardware. I said, no, it's not here either. He says, that's another building. He says, and the shoe rod plant down there. He said, that property's still insured. He said, so we have to count it, but it's actually outside the city limits. It's in a donut hole. It's in Barnwell County because of tax purposes. I said, that's right. He says, so I'm not going to count those buildings against you anymore. So really and truly, you don't get the best credit for the ladder truck anymore. You need that rescue truck more than anything. So I said, well, we got the ladder. We'll still use it for operations purposes, but this is our reserve rescue. And how we go to it. But all it's going to take is somebody to build a 3-story building and we're back at it again. What counts against us now for a ladder is the county's office complex to be building in the back, the First Baptist Church, 3 stories in the back. And other than that, it would take some 3-story buildings. A hotel and motel would bring it right back in. So anyway, that is something else. We lost some of our man. What really hurts us around here is with all that is large school buildings and large government buildings, large churches. All things that don't pay taxes, but require the town to supply the heaviest equipment for.
Right. And speaking of some of those the history and some of those fires. Obviously, when a fire occurs, when you're setting up a fire department, in the city of Barnwell's case, you have a paid staff, but really and truly, your department, and certainly at the county level, our departments, we have chiefs, but it's all volunteer, right? So your department is really only as good as your volunteers.
That's correct.
And so just talk a little bit about, volunteers, the importance of volunteers. And then I'd like to eventually kind of dig in a little bit here, because I think, especially in a rural area, the volunteer landscape is really, really important. And so just talking about how, obviously how can we do a better job of recruiting, retaining, things of that nature. So just talk a little bit about volunteers and the importance of those volunteers.
And even though Barnwell has a paid firefighter down there, a driver or whatever, and has a full-time, he's a deputy chief now, and it's there in the daytime, Monday through Friday, we couldn't operate the fire department. You got to have. And so what we try to do is have enough volunteers where you can have at least 4 volunteers per truck. That's the standard by NFPA. They're like 4 people on an engine company, and so that's ideal if we can get to that. But getting that many people to respond at one time and stuff to do. And then in the unincorporated areas and some of the smaller towns right here, they're 100% volunteers. So it takes everything from day-to-day management, record keeping, maintenance, and all that stuff, in addition to fighting the fires, has to take place with volunteer people. Volunteer fire service, and it's a national problem, is really struggling right now to be able to hold up. There are fire departments all in the Northeast that are basically small community fire departments that are bedroom communities that were started as volunteer organizations, and they had enough population to stay as a volunteer organization because they basically had people take call and they would make sure they would be a response. They're having to shut down and depend on maybe the local town or a fire department down the road to employ their district because they had baby. And I don't know what, it all happened right after COVID. All of a sudden, we lost our volunteer base and stuff. And like I say, it's a national problem. Our National Volunteer Fire Council has run out there and really started a recruitment and retention program. We've done that at the State Firefighters Association level and built toolboxes for fire departments to use, and marketing and everything else. Even the federal government will allow you a grant to create a position in your fire department that is recruiter. And so we looked at how the military recruits, we looked at how other industries recruit and different jobs and stuff, and trying to apply it to the fire service. And it's tough. And a lot of people just assume that when they dial 911, somebody's there and they're coming. And it's not that way in rural South Carolina. We have a lot of influx from the Northeast that people have moved down here, and they don't know today. There's people living in Barnwell today that think there's a team full of people standing in that fire station ready to go, and it's just not so. They just don't see it. The volunteers show up and pick up and slack. But like I say, we struggle. There's been times as I being chief that the wife and the family wants to go down the road to do something at their mother's house or her mother's house or whatever on Saturday and a Sunday. And I know that they were really thinning that weekend for people. I said, I better stay home, just to be available and stuff. So a lot of volunteers, as well as some paid staff, they give up their personal time, for the fire department. I was fortunate. My wife understood it because she married me knowing I was a firefighter. And my children did the same thing. I missed a lot of ball games and a lot of other things because where were you, Dad? I was standing by at the fire station, or I had to leave and go to the fire. And that's how it works. Volunteers, I don't know if somebody knew they could be a millionaire today. What is it going to take to get people excited about being a volunteer firefighter again? A lot of them pushback is the amount of training that has to take place today. And the cost and for all this, for all volunteers, is really tough. It doesn't cost them, it costs the department. But the days we used to be, you just reach out and grab a coat off the fire truck and a helmet and a pair of boots and go fight fire. Doesn't happen anymore. Everybody has to have their own personal set of gear. And, we're looking at $2,000 per person, easy to equip them in gear. And if they come on the department, everything's kind of custom fit today. They stay on the department a year and leave. Well, we've got that much investment in materials and protective clothing that won't fit anybody else, and we've got to find somebody new. So it's tough to get them to go. What we have right now in our community, most of the volunteers here now are extremely young, or either they're seniors like me, that they still saw a sense of pride in helping their community. Now, South Carolina did a good thing. The Fire Service the Association got out and really worked with the Department of Labor and allowed us to create a program through career and technical education, high school level stuff, to where you can create a fire service program in that school. We tried to get one going here in Barnwell County, but the struggle there was they were hiring a full-time instructor. And the instructor that picked up the job for the first year did criminal justice as well. So it was hard for him to do both. It was kind of a self-taught class, and it kind of fell on his face. But their career centers around the state, that's all they do. They got their own fire trucks. They got their own department basically in the school. And when these guys walk out of school, and girls, they're firefighter too with all the goodies and probably EMT at that point. And then they got to work to get to 18 before they can legally be licensed as a emergency medical technician with the state. But they can get into the fire service right off the bat. That way they can hire straight in. So that's the push we're really working with, getting a lot of youth right out of high school. We like to encourage them to continue on with their education, but you can also work at the fire station while still going to school. And so that's happening around our state. It's slow fire because we're really rural. We don't have a program here in our community. But out there is it puts people volunteering, or it lets them take that volunteer job and move it into a career job and still volunteer on their days off. I've got 4 or 5 people that's on our department. They're working in Dorchester County as a career, or the city of Charleston, a different place like that, or down on Ladies Island. They're working there. They work down there, and they come back home to volunteer with us. And they got their start as a volunteer. So it really helps us out doing that. But volunteerism is a problem. And it's not only just the fire service. I think they see it in a few other things too, but the fire service is really struggling. In fact, the insurance service office is starting to see it. And they're saying, the day is coming. If you want to keep a decent insurance rate, you're going to have to employ people to be able to keep staff available. They only allow us, for every 3 volunteer firefighters that show up to the scene, we get credit for 1 career firefighter that has showed up. In other words, that's the ratio they use, because they say, well, we don't know how far they got to come. We don't know if they're going to get the call or not, and then are they in town, so we're playing the odds there. So, it would take, we talked about to get the maximum amount of people, 4 firefighters per truck. We got 3 engines that's got to roll, a rescue and a ladder. So that's 12 people. And 36 people have to respond, every time to get the maximum amount of credit for us with ISO. And we don't see that. We do go to get 10. So we get 3 people. That's what they look at as being responsible. We make it up and buying equipment, providing a good water system, and it's good record keeping and good training.
And I think one of the things, talking about the volunteers, to me, looking at it, is the family aspect. I feel like just from the outside looking in, that most volunteer fire departments that I've seen, whether it be in the county in Barnwell or here locally with the city, all around really, is that family aspect. When you join a fire department, it feels like you're joining a second family almost. And I think that's one of the things that, I know that is the kind of recruitment and retention side. I think that's one of the important things that maybe is sometimes overlooked when you're marketing, but I feel like it's one of those things where when you join, you're almost joining that second family, and those guys, men and women, become like family to you.
That's correct. And we see that down here in our station. And the word comes out, is it a firehouse? Because it is a family type orientated type organization, so everybody's got a brotherhood that's involved in it, or is it a fire station? So we like to call ourselves a firehouse, come to the firehouse. But today the thing is the kitchen table in the fire station. That's where they all get together, they chit and they chat and do whatever. In this new fire station that we've done, we've tried to incorporate things that would attract the volunteer to come hang out down there on Saturday. Maybe we got a big screen TV now. We got a big place to get everybody together. Let's watch a football game or do something. We're all here. And the idea is, as long as they're at the fire station, we're getting credit for full-time people, and so you can work that towards your insurance service office credit, as well as, hey, if we have to respond, we can respond with a full crew on the truck ready to go. Talking about going beyond just the volunteers themselves being the family, but the families of the volunteers. We're trying to incorporate that where spouses and the children could come to the station on days when we, having something going on. We've got room for them now where they can all, be together and, learn who each other are. In this new building, we really looked at the aspect from learning from the last ice storm that we had. The volunteer firefighter has a hard time getting up and going out the door when there's no power at the house and everybody in the house is cold. And what are we going to do, Daddy? And you're going to leave us and go take care of somebody else. So we've got it where now you can bring your family up to the fire station, and we got a place to put them. It's out of the way of all hazards that might go on the engine floor or whatever. And it's quiet where they're at, and they don't involve noise as far as getting involved in all the other stuff going on downstairs. But they got a place to stay. It's got electricity and heat and showers and a bed. And so we're taking care of a home family to come up to the fire station during times of emergency when they need the help as well as, trying to take care of each other. Like that. So that's one of the aspects we put into the new building.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue. Speaking of that new house down there, and I think that's a good analogy, good way to put it. But when you look at, I think probably maybe not everybody in town has seen or heard it yet, but they certainly will. When you drive by the new station there, you certainly cannot miss the just the beauty. Number one, the beauty of it. It turned out really pretty, and then also the vastness and the scale of it is really nice as well. And so just talk a little bit about the thought process. Obviously, this is something that has been in the works for a long time. A lot of people would say a long time coming, and certainly well deserved. But talk about kind of the thought process of, from that 1954 building to what you guys are moving into or have moved into over the past few weeks.
We looked at a lot of fire stations that had just been built in the last 2 years around the state of North Carolina and South Carolina and over in Georgia before we built this. And we made notes. We seen things that we liked. We talked to the leadership of those departments and said, what would you do different if you could build it over again? And so we've learned a lot of lessons. We didn't have to learn on our dime. We learned on theirs. The next thing was we looked at the National Fire Prevention Association's recommendation for fire stations. And things have changed over the years. Cancer has become the number one killer of firefighters in our nation. And where before it was, heart attack and all this stuff. And the cancer causing agents are in the fire station. What's happening is we're bringing back all the products of combustion with the truck and the hose and the protective clothing and all the stuff. And then when the trucks run, you got diesel stuff that comes out of them. And so you wind up with your protective clothing, gets a little bit of contamination on it from the trucks. It gets it on it from the firefighting that you're doing or the aspect of your job. And then I'm walking in the living quarters with my boots on and all that stuff's on, but nobody thought about that back then. It wasn't a problem because things that burn today are a lot different from what burnt back in the 40s and 50s. It's legacy furniture versus today's what I call solid gasoline, which is your furniture that's built out of styrofoam and stuff, and all these nasty products that come off of it and superheated gases. So NFPA got involved and said, look, you got to separate your living quarters and your administrative quarters and stuff. You got to create places where you can decontaminate, clean, and keep your place, risk-free. And so we built that into this station. The administrative area as well as the living quarters upstairs are totally separated from air conditioning systems and everything else that can exchange any air with any other part of the building. In other words, it's isolated. We've got a room downstairs, we call it the decon room. So if a firefighter goes out on a call, he comes back, he's just cruded up and stuff. Well, let's say he goes on a first responder call, he comes back, he's got blood all over his uniform and everything else. He doesn't have to walk through the administrative area to go upstairs to the living quarters and take a shower and clean up. That stuff don't come inside. You got a room downstairs that is entered from the bay. You can go straight in, you can disrobe, shower, wash, clean up, get some modesty clothing on, then work your way upstairs to get to where you can finish up and get back in your uniform. We can do the same thing for the protective clothing. When it's really in bad shape, we got an extractor washer there that does nothing but protective clothing. And then it washes and cleans and dries, and then we can put it back on the rack. We got a room under a negative pressure that is climate controlled. That if people want to store their protective clothing in there on racks, ready to go, you can. The idea is we don't want the diesel on the truck getting on. We don't want the sun bleaching it out with the UV, and we want to keep it, in a good atmosphere. And so the guy on duty, he takes his protective clothing out, puts it by the truck for the day. But after he gets off duty, he puts his protective clothing back in that room. So, and again, that room is on its own little air system and stuff like that. So we basically got what we call a hot zone, a warm zone in the building, and a cold zone. And you start decontaminating as you go towards the cold zone. And so that's what we built into this to try to make it a little bit more health-wise friendly. And then we also built in some space to where we could store stuff. We took 70 years worth of stuff that's been collected at that old fire station and trying to put it in that building is getting tough. We're having to do a lot of soul searching about what do we really need to keep. And so, but anyway, we're finding places to put stuff, things like that. We built our apparatus bays, what they call dual loaded. There's a drive-through double load. You can put one truck behind the other. And everybody asks, why you build that so big? I said, well, a volunteer headquarters, I guess, or a town headquarters fire station needs to be your largest station because it carries all the auxiliary equipment and tools you need. Where if the town were to grow distance-wise, let's say it gets larger and you move your city limits further out, we may have to put a fire station with one truck closer to get the balance distance right. But the heavy equipment's coming from downtown. And so we're running a ladder, a rescue, and 3 engines. That's 5 vehicles right there right after that. We've got a UTV for specialty work. We've got a foam trailer. We've got a hazmat trailer. Where the idea is we'd love to have us a nice boat, a rescue type boat that we can launch in Lake Brown because that's in our jurisdiction. And so we've got an inflatable boat right now, but it takes a few minutes to blow it up and get it ready to go. So that takes another space. Then let's say you decide to get a pickup truck and put a brush fire firing rig on it. When we got through, there's a half a bay left. You could fill that building up. And you wouldn't grow any larger than that. You grow exponentially somewhere else. But that's the idea where we can grow. We've not been able to go for a federal grant to be able to employ more people. We can do that now because we got a place for people to sleep. But the old building had 3 beds packed in a room along with the office. And you just couldn't hire additional people to be able to keep 2 on duty at all times and stuff like that. So that opened up a window for us to help us out in that. So we looked at all the things that people did around us and further away. Picked up on a lot of tips on this works and this doesn't work. And we included in this. We had a good firm that worked with us. They built fire stations for Cobb County and Georgia all the way back into North Augusta, South Carolina. And this is their 10th fire station that they built. And they really laid it out right for us and made it look good. We gave up a couple of things on cost that we had to bite off a little bit like that, but that's part of it. And we're happy with it. I think serving city the rest of my life, if not more. And shouldn't have to do any adding on like we did for over the years with the 54 building. Just kept adding on every time you buy a truck. Won't do that anymore.
Right. And inside that building, one of the things I remember just from hearing some discussions at the city council meeting, some of the training aspects of, I think it was like an exterior tower or something. Talk about some of the things that are built into the station that allow you to be able to continue some of that training and do some of that training on site so that when these volunteers and when these paid staff do respond to a fire, they are as trained as possible and they can knock out some of that training. What's kind of built into there right now?
The tower out back is threefold. One, we needed a tower to be able to put our radio communication antennas on. So we said, well, we got to put something anyway. A small, right in the backyard of the old building was a telephone pole. And so the tower we built acts as an antenna mast. It also acts as a hose drying tower. We'll be able to bring the wet fire hose up on the side, let it hang in the sun and in the air till it dries, and take it back down and store it in the rack. And then the other thing is it acts as a drill tower. We got several multi-story, multi-family complexes in our district or in our town. And then the idea is we got to work our way up the stairs, make a turn, go up again to get to where the fire is. And so now we have a place that we can do multiple stories, up to 2 stories there, and make turns and get inside and fight the fire. We'll get to practice that, on exterior cuts. We're going to attach I call it a mock sprinkler system to it where we can practice hooking up to a sprinkler system, wedging a sprinkler head, things like that. And it's all exterior, so it can get wet and all this good stuff. Basically, it's a drill tower. Inside, we had a large space on the second floor that was really, just excess space. And we said, this is a perfect place to create a training location for indoor training. And so we can ladder to it, and we're going to have a window frame put in where we can ladder, crawl in, do our search, whatever, and we'll create a maze inside there. The floor is padded for our knees and stuff. And then we can come right back out. And it's got to call it vent, enter, search. And that's the new technology today. You vent with your ladder and you enter and you do a quick search of the room. You go back out the same way looking for people versus trying to go in from the internal parts of the residence and stuff. So that's going to be in there as well. And then we got a nice classroom for the first time it's, to be isolated from everybody else and we don't have any outside noise coming through. And that works out as well. But, those things are really going to help us out as far as being able to, you know, do training on training nights when the guys show up at the station. If it's rainy or it's cold outside, we can work inside, and it works out pretty good. We have this place just south of Barnwell with a bunch of Connex containers and stuff, and those are there where we can actually do live firefighter training. We can put smoke in those and do some things. We got to finish that up on the inside, but these training pieces of equipment count towards our ISO score and help lower the insurance cost for people in the district as well.
Right, and it's twofold. One, you want the training for the volunteers so that when they respond, they'll know what to do to put out the fire. But also, there's a safety aspect of it too, which is equally important, I think. And speaking of those radios and communication and things at the news station, is just a question that I had. How when a call comes in at the news station, how is I know they wear the radio on their side, but is there like a notification system, or how is the response notified at the news station versus maybe before?
Well, we'll back up just a little bit and talk a little bit about history. We talked about earlier in the 20s and 30s, the steam whistle, and you might could have gotten a phone call in or whatever. The insurance service map says the alarm was sounded by gun, bell, or a whistle or whatever. Somebody, that's how it was. And then ISO people, they look and say, how do you get your alarm and how quickly can you muster the team and get them out there? That counts. If it takes a while for somebody to get the call in, well, that hurts your insurance rate. And so for years, the telephone number at the fire station for an alarm was 259-3535. And we answered our own telephone call for the fire alarm, took down the address, hung up the phone, got in the truck, and left the station. So there's nobody there to answer for the second call until somebody shows back up. And that's how this is run probably until I would say into the early 80s. And then Barnwell County, and I don't know what got this started, but there was this grant that came through, and they decided that we can take part of this grant and we can create what they call a central dispatch system. And we're prior to 9/11 right now, prior to the 911 system.
Right.
But anyway, Barnwell County established a central dispatch system out of the old county jail. All new law enforcement radios that could communicate from car to car, no matter where you were in the county. Before, it was hard to talk from the car to the central station, and the radios were a different type of system then. EMS got involved at that time, and they had a radio system as well. And the fire service says, we've got the old stuff that law enforcement used to use, and it doesn't work for them. Why is it going to work for us? So the town was able to say, hey, we can put your radio system in. Our dispatchers at the county could help work with it. And we bought pagers for the first time. So every firefighter had a pager on the hip. They got the call at the same time that almost the 911 people got it. It was dispatchers at the central dispatch station. So that still goes on today, except now we're an enhanced 911 system where the operator at the dispatch center can actually see the call coming up on a screen, can identify an address. Unless you're on a cell phone, that really makes it a struggle. But if you're at a landline at your home, it pops up the address it's being called from or whatever, and they can determine, looking at their screens, that they've got predetermined what location you are, what fire department responds to you, and then at that point we go back to the old pager system. They set out over a series of radio tones that activates certain pagers, certain fire departments. Everybody has their own pager number, and it would activate that fire department's pagers. They would get the audible message of when the location the fire was. We respond back by radio either in the station or in the truck. But at the news station, there's speakers throughout the station. No matter where you are, you won't miss the call. You'll hear it. Plus, the guys carry a radio with them just as a security blanket, I think. Where if that race radio wasn't working, I want to be able to hear it. But, and another thing we did with the new building is we talked with Roger Riley, and I said, Roger, I know you're supposed to have a backup or a secondary EOC. If something happened there at the EOC that you in, the building got flooded or whatever, you got to relocate. And I said, so we can do that here. And so we built that in. That process is built into the building where he can come down and plug in and play. Beaufort County, they evacuate on a Category 4 hurricane, direct hit Hilton Head or into the Bluffton area. All those personnel come to Barnwell County and they stay in the school district buildings. Well, we said, why don't you come on up here? And you can plug and play and talk back. At the same time, they let us use all the people that they brought up here for our services and stuff. And so we did that. And so, and we got it fixed now where the city can have its own emergency operations center. Back when we had the ice storm, it would have been nice to where we had a central place we were working out of. We can operate the water, street department, police, and everything else. We all knew what each other was doing. We were feeding everybody that was on duty, keeping them there, and taking care of things. We've got that capability in the new building as well now. So communications has not changed a lot, but it's enhanced the capabilities of it. Radios is the way to go now with us on the fire service. There was a time when the fire department didn't have the first walkie-talkie, and now everybody on the fire department. Yeah. So that's the way it works.
Yeah, that and now the e-dispatch thing even to yourself now, right? And speaking of the dispatch, I think that's one of the very important jobs. That person that's taking that first phone call that comes in and making sure that they get dispatched out to the right location at the right place and the right service that's going there. So that we certainly appreciate everything those dispatchers do.
They are our eyes and ears when we get there. They sum up what they hear in the background. They take notice that they can tell us some history on the location that we're going to if it's had problems before, whatever. But we really depend on those guys. And when we get there, we depend on them to carry it further if we need additional resources. We just tell them what we need. They get those resources on the way and they keep up with us. In some systems, the dispatcher even sits there, hey, it's been 11 minutes. I'm going to ask for what we call a PAR, personal accountability report. Make that person on the scene that's in charge. Give me that PAR. I want to make sure all the people are okay. So, we're not quite to that level yet in Barnwell County because the radio systems won't let us talk individually strong back to the dispatcher and stuff like that. If we're on the fire ground, we can talk to the scene and they can radio to the scene.
Yeah. Before we, I want to kind of close in just a few minutes with some of the personal reflections throughout your career. But before we do that, you're a very straightforward fella. So I'm going to ask you a question here. When you look at and you're also really involved in the state, from a state level, you've been involved in, the State Fire Association and other things. If you were to look at Barnwell County as a whole, and then maybe even the city of Barnwell, fire service, kind of where we are today versus comparable counties or comparable cities, how would you rate that? And then, number one, how would you rate it? And then maybe how could we take another step to improve as we look, 5 to 10 years down the road?
You don't have to look far. From Colleton County is probably the lead in South Carolina as far as the model example of a fire and EMS system that was built in the last 10 years. I lived in Colleton County for a little bit. That's where my wife's from. And the fire department in my community was what they call a subscription-based fire department. They started it with some citizens. They raised money. And if you wanted fire protection, you needed to pay $20 a year and get your name on the list. And that was the only way the fire department could survive. It didn't have any tax base or whatever to work from. The county government wasn't interested in being in the fire service. Same thing happened for people right around Walterboro. The town of Walterboro, they just took care of what was inside the town limits. They didn't leave the town limits. And so people that populated around the town, they said, how can we do it? So they started a fire department. And all that started in the 70s. And just about everybody got a fire department going. And it was a struggle. It was City of Orangeburg did it for years that you had to have a contract. And so if you didn't have a contract, fire truck didn't come. And therefore, it was bad PR because the house burnt down. And then about the time it was almost burnt down, the neighbor next door that had a contract said, you need to come because mine's fixed to catch on fire. Then it really did look bad. But, none of the firefighters enjoyed that. But that was the only way you could survive and keep things running. Cost of things really were getting hard to deal with. In Colleton County specifically, we were able to get a referendum on the ballot during a general election that said, would you be willing to allow the county to put a fire tax, to support your fire department or whatever, stuff like that, and get rid of this contract-based stuff? Well, the only district that voted for it was the one right around Baltimore, and everybody else said no. And so I was the fire chief at one of those fire departments that said no. I think the only people that voted for it was me and my wife. But anyway, people were just a little stubborn. They didn't want another tax or whatever, stuff like that. So it finally got to the point where we were going to have to abandon the fire department because it was hard to pay for the insurance, keep the building in shape, and buy all the equipment and all that we needed and stuff like that, keep people involved. And we weren't the only fire department down there in that shape. And so they finally were able to convince the county council. He says, let's create some type of unified program here. And so they were able to go out and do a fire commission. I think they got a board down there. But they went to work with it. And then they put every fire department except the town of Walterboro town of Williams and the town of Edgehill Beach under it, and offered them the opportunity, would you like to be under it? The town of Williams moved right into it because the fire truck there was owned by the local man that owned the sawmill. But anyway, it all became one. They created a fire tax. They were able to go out and take a bond out and buy some fire equipment, stage it. They've got a good many career people, but they took that community from everybody in that community either having a class 10, which meant no fire protection at all, or class 9 being the very basic, to class 4 overnight. And so people's fire insurance premiums just cut in half, just like that. It cost a little bit of money, but what money it cost them, they saved more than that in their insurance savings. So they're the model sample to look at us. And then they picked up the EMS system since then. The county had a problem with their EMS and said, we need somebody that knows how to manage it, and you're doing a good job at that fire department, chief. Why don't you take it on? And so they picked up the EMS system. And so, they're a model city or a model county for rural fire protection and EMS in South Carolina. Orangeburg County is close to that. Like I said, the city of Orangeburg contract to get outside the city. All the other little towns around did the same thing. North, Neces, Norway, Ellery, Utahville, all that stuff. But then they had to get away from that and go to something. So they did what they call the Orangeburg County Fire District. And they're not involved in the EMS side of it. But basically, they went in and they offered the towns, and we'll come in, buy out all your fire equipment. We don't want your building. We're going to get a new building and put it where it works strategically best for your town and ISO for all the other people around you. And we'll come in and run this thing for you. Still runs on volunteers. They got a few paid staff that are more administrative, training, and management that work with grants and stuff. They built a training center for the whole county and stuff. And they got new equipment everywhere. They got trucks like you wouldn't believe. All over places there. But, if you would have put Barnwell County on a scale with those two, those being rated A and B, I think Barnwell's going to be at a C, at a good C, because we're trying to evolve to that. We're still hanging on to the idea that everybody wants to be their own fire department instead of being Barnwell County Fire Service. And so I think the day is going to have to come that we all have to get together, because Barnwell's struggling right now with manpower on the volunteer side. When we respond, those 10 volunteers that show up on average to a structure fire count as 3. And so, but then the Barnwell Rural Fire Department responds to fire, and they get 2 additional fire departments that respond with them on automatic aid to a rural area, which they need because they need the equipment to carry. Well, they need the tankers and they need the pumpers and all that stuff, because there's no water system out there. They count all those people that respond from those 3 stations. And now I've got 25 people showed up, 24 people showed up. Well, I got 8 full-time people that showed up, man.
Right.
So it helps their ISO rating and stuff. And so Barnwell stands alone. That's the only negative thing about Barnwell being separated out as far as that goes. But I think the day's going to come, we all will have to depend on each other. It's already happening all over the state. Automatic mutual lanes for everybody. You look up in Lexington County, Irmo County, Lexington County, and Richland County run together on everything on that side of the county. It's just you got to be able to get the manpower to need and be able to, do a decent job and do it safely as far as that goes. But I think Barnwell will get there. It's just the fire departments are like, we want to make things better, but we hate change. So anyway, so the idea is, what do you mean I'm not going to be the chief here anymore? I'm going to be the station captain. That's what happened in Colleton County. The fire chief of the Island Fire Hall, which was me at the time, and then there's somebody else who's down there since me. Now they're the captain of that station, and then the chief is, one central chief of the whole station, all the stations, and they do all the management training, manage all their stuff for them. They don't have to worry about nothing but show up, go get the truck, go to the fire, and so that works out good. Anyway, I think that's where we need to go. That's where a lot of county, Dorchester County has absorbed everything. That was all individual. What they call public safety districts or whatever, special purpose tax districts. They absorb everything except the town of Somerville. They even took it to the town of St. George, and they're running it on one heading, one team and organization, and it's county managed as far as that goes in funding and stuff. So it's happening everywhere. Greenwood County is doing the same thing. Aiken County is a little different. Everybody's got their own district, but their own source of funding. They're not quite unified altogether, but the county is doing some purchasing for them and helping them to kind of buy similar trucks at the same time, where everything works together and all this good stuff. So it's a beginning over there as well. That's where we're at. I think the day's coming. It's going to have to happen. And if you look at other counties, when they see growth or things changing like Dorchester County did, and they're fixing to pick up the EMS system in Dorchester County, the fire services, Clarendon County is running fire and EMS. I mean, then they've been in the rural fire protection system over there for a long time. They were one of the leaders in the state that we looked at to learn what to do to halt water. But anyway, that's the way it's heading. I think everybody's going to have to be as one, and the people don't care as long as the fire truck shows up. They don't care where it comes from or whatever. We've seen cases where the town fire department has been at the edge of the town limits, anticipating growth and expansion and annexation, and the fire happened, a quarter mile down the road, and they can't respond. They got to wait for a truck to come 3 more miles away in the rural area. And so those days are gone. City of Charleston, North Charleston, the St. Andrews area, every fire department in Charleston County has an interoperability agreement or automatic aid agreement, and they come from everywhere now. It don't matter if it's in their district. And everybody just says, hey, we get the help, they get the help. It's a trade-off. And so the pay structure stays the same as how people are paying for the service. You're paying it through the service that you got it through. But then you might show up in the city of Charleston, shows up at your house, and I don't live in the city of Charleston, but hey, we're here because we have a station down the road.
Right. And and I think it's interesting, as we look at economic development issues, there's a saying that companies, they don't see jurisdictions, they don't see a city line, they don't see a county line. They, when they're locating, they don't see those things. And I think likewise, a lot of times as citizens, especially, you may know that you live in the city of Barnwell, obviously, or Barnwell County, but you don't know when you call 911, when you're asking for a fire department, you don't know. And frankly, I don't think you really care if it's somebody from Station 11 coming or from, Station Hilda coming or something like that. You just want somebody to show up. And so I think as it's interesting, how those, even within the county, how some of those mutual aid responses take place and where some of those responses take place from, which I think some people probably they just don't know, because you just don't think about that as an average citizen. And so
you can't pick up the phone and dial 911 and choose the fire department that you know. And we as the fire service, we have to be on our A game at every station, because the public, doesn't get the chance to say, well, no, I want that fire department over there to come to me because they're better than you. No, everybody's the same. They don't have that choice when they pick up the phone. So you can't undersell them, I guess you'd say. You need to provide the best service you can provide for what you have to work with and be effective and do the job for them, because, they expect it. They pay their taxes in for it, and they assume that they're going to get, people's service, I guess, as anybody else would get. And we struggle with that in rural South Carolina, because the fire department out in the rural area maybe doesn't get quite as much money or whatever. So that, yet I paid into the whole system. Why don't I get that better? And get all that evened out. It's going to have to be the task of the county to bring it all up, or I should say.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting, and not necessarily easy answers to some of those challenges. As you kind of look to navigate through some of that. But I tell you, the fire system, and certainly the volunteer firefighter, is something that from my time on council I've come to appreciate more and more. Just the willingness of those men and women to take time out of their family, like you were saying, miss events and be ready to respond when there is a call. Because if like the city of Barnwell in the county, we couldn't do it. I mean, it is volunteer, right? So you couldn't do it. So that volunteer nucleus is, and we're fortunate to have a lot of really good volunteers and a lot of people who, as you said, really want to do the right thing and are trying to do the best thing. So we're really, really thankful for that, both in the city and the county. Thank you for being so gracious with your time today. It's been really, really good. Kind of as we close here, you've worked a long career, and you've had some time to kind of, I think, reflect back probably over the last several months. And as you've seen the new station come up, and kind of as you've been kind of reflecting on your career, what are some of the most rewarding things that you remember from your time here? What are some memories that really that you'll always remember as you've kind of reflected back?
You're gonna make me get all teared up here. Jonathan Vickery was in front of the fire station the other day when they were doing that little bit of demolition that was near the end, and he had myself and current fire chief Philip Delt there, and we were standing in front of the bay door, and he says, "Tell me what you're thinking right now." And I told Jonathan, I said, "Well, my first fire call that I ever rode a fire truck to came out of this door right here, and my dad was driving the truck, and I managed to get in the truck, and he didn't want me to go. He wanted me to stay at the fire station with the paid guy, but we rode way out in Holland Springs to a house that was on fire. which was, on the ground by the time we got to it and all that stuff. But, those are some sentimental things, as you say. I spent 24 years, as I tell a lot of people, in the jail cell at my last job. And we had 4 jail cells in that old building, and 2 of them were turned into the fire chief's office. And so that's what we worked out of. And so the last 24 years of my fire service career was spent in the jail cell. But anyway, some of the good things, we've been able to improve and try to make things better. I've tried to make it better for the employees that we had by trying to get them a little bit more better working situation. And now that we got a new building, it's even better than that. They don't have to share the same room and all this good stuff. But, and then working towards that, we really improved, and it started under several chiefs before me, but we continued to improve the equipment that the city had and what we're working with and the techniques and the strategies that we used. And we just grew with it and tried to make a good job and tried to do it financially correct. We didn't just go out and blow money on everything. So, and we used grants where we could, and we bought some stuff that we never could have afforded with federal grants that we've never done before. But those things did good, and the long-term underlying goal was we got to get into a new station somehow. And so that kept going for a while, and then, like I say, it started under my leadership, and then whenever I seen that, hey, we broke ground, we're ready to go, I was ready to move on out and let somebody else have a turn at it. And so anyway, and it's continuing right on under there. I'm still involved. Got my toe in the door a little bit. I was told that I have to take care of that historical area that we have there where we keep Bertha. We're going to do a public fire safety education out of there, as well as the historical aspects where we don't forget where we came from and fix that up. So that's been my assignment. And then other than that, I think we're going to have a grand opening for the public and everybody else, which will be the first Saturday in September. We need a little time to put things away over there. We still got stuff on the engine floor that's still up on pallets. And so we're trying to get the place to look like it's supposed to look when you come in. And we want to be able to have a big day with that and let people come in and see what they have for their community. That fire station is the, what do you call it? Is the eye candy for the fire service. I've had fire chiefs and county directors from Florence County and everywhere else come to me. Can you send me the footprint? We want to see your building, what have you done, and stuff like that. So we got something to be proud of here in our community. And a lot of people say, why so big or whatever? I said, you don't understand. It's like when you build a shed in your backyard. I'll never fill that up, but it always happens. And here we've tried to fix it where we'll never fill it up. But we got another truck on order right now. About 2 years before we get it to how long for days. It's going in that building as well. And so I mean, it's just that was a grant funded truck, and we got to get it as flex ready to go. So that's about it. I'm enjoying it. It's been nice to go home and not have to hear the radio and sleep. I don't have to get up and run. I will get up and come if they call. And I still get where I can go drive a truck if I need to. I've got a firefighter that's been a volunteer that far when my father was fire chief, and he's still getting up and running calls. And I said, that's pretty bad of me. He rides by my house on the way to the station. I said, I need to get up and go. But anyway, I tried to give the new leadership some space, letting them do the things they want to do. They've got some things they want to change and do. I was kind of sentimental. I like things the way they work. Anyway, I told them I'm not going to be in the way. You do what you want to do, and you got room to do it. So it's working.
Well, that's great. As we kind of sit overlooking the circle today, that fire station really puts a nice entrance. As you're coming in from that side of town, boy, when you see that with the new police station, and I mean, it really is a nice crown jewel on that side of town. So.
And we got a little competition going against you. You got this beautiful conference room that looks out over the circle. Well, we got this beautiful upstairs window that looks right up towards the circle, and we can see everything.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what I hear. It's nice. I can't wait to.
Now that the old buildings out there, you can see everything. And I said, "Wow, that's the first time we've seen a lot of stuff this direction."
Yeah, that's
it's a second opportunity to see things with elevated down.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, Chief Dinks, really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us here. I know everybody really will appreciate your insights here, and one day in the future we'll circle back and have another discussion where I want to talk to you about Dunbarton and some of that kind of stuff, because I know that's another passionate area, and I think that's an important one as well. So we'll put that on the calendar maybe sometime in the fall or early next year. So really appreciate your time, and thanks for all you have done and continue to do for the city of Barnwell and Barnwell County as a whole, and just the fire service in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you.